Hi, my name is Pastor Katie, and I want to welcome you to the Garden of Grace devotion. Today, the question that I begin with is it easy for you to cast your cares upon the Lord? Is it easy for you to give the things that you're worried about, your cares, your anxiety, to God, and not take it right back? I ask you this question today. I begin this devotion with this question today because it's something that I grapple with casting my cares on the Lord and then letting that be, with trusting that God has heard my cares, my anxiety, my worries, and not taking them right back. Recently, I heard a sermon online which was focused on, in part, this passage from 1 Peter chapter 5. Verse 7 reads, "Cast all your anxiety on the Lord because He cares for you." Cast, toss, throw all of your anxiety on the Lord because your God cares for you. I so appreciate this verse. I love this verse. And I was both intrigued and amused when I heard a sermon online recently talking about it in a way I hadn't thought about it before. The pastor, Pastor Kearney, he talked about what it's like for our kids to ride in the back seat of a car and how carefree they are. I can't remember the exact example that he used, but what came to mind for me was just when I was driving with my kids when they were younger, and they're in the back seat watching Blue's Clues on their little this, that, or whatever. They're not worried about which way I'm turning. They're not worried about whether or not I'm following directions. They are just chilling in the back seat. Pastor Kearney talked about living our lives of faith in a similar way, about casting our cares upon the Lord and then resting in that. Imagining God as the driver in our lives, working in and through us and others, and what it might be like to trust God to lead me each day of my life. Now, I listened to that analogy and I kind of chuckled to myself because so often I am much more like the passenger, the person in the front passenger seat who's trying to teach a teenager to drive, and I'm like slamming on that imaginary brake. I'm like just all tense, hand on the thing, like just trying to make sure that I'm going to be safe. None of which, by the way, probably makes any difference whatsoever. In fact, acting that way probably makes the driver even more anxious. But that is often, I think, how I live out my journey of casting my anxiety, casting my fears on the Lord. I do it. And then I think sometimes, a lot of times, maybe most of the time, I take it right back. And then, in my most human moments, I probably also try to teach God how to drive. I think I do. Because I cast my anxiety, I cast my fears, my worries on God, and so often I take them right back. forget in my daily life that the loving God who created me also is there to lead me through life because he cares for me. So with God's help, I want to give it a go. I want to give it a go. I want to try over and over and over again to cast my anxiety, my fear, my worries, my cares onto God. And over again, I want to seek, to trust, and to believe, and to have peace in knowing that God is the Lord of my life and leading me. When I feel all just balled up in anxiety, I want to think about that image of that kid in the back seat, not a care in the world, trust in the driver. And I pray this image brings you some peace. I pray this image brings me more and more peace all the time. And I pray God's peace for you today and always. Amen.